So I'm beginning the recording, so the session is being recorded, and that we have that underway. All right, this is for CIST 1122, and I think at least one of you have not been in one of my live collaborate sessions before. I definitely recognize one, and I think one other. So let me go through a couple of things real quick, just some background for you. One, to get credit for this in place of your discussion for this week, which is the discussion that started yesterday, you have to listen in and you also have to participate. So either you have to put some stuff in the chat session, more than just hello, good morning. Either questions or comments. Sometimes we have some lively discussions in these, and then you'll qualify for the credit on it. And I will give you 100 on the discussion for the week. I try to post those grades pretty soon, but not always. Sometimes they slip a little bit in time. And so just be aware of that as we're participating. And I see we got one more joining in now. So be aware on that. Now let me go over a couple of things for the next few weeks on things. Today I am doing these. Yesterday was a holiday. I did work a number of hours all weekend. Friday I worked 10 hours on classes. Saturday, I believe it was 4 hours, about 3 hours Sunday, and about the same yesterday, about 3 hours. So I've worked solid. I've been answered emails all weekend, and have been online since early this morning. So all of in this class, your stuff is automatically graded. So that stuff all appears in test out. I will start transferring grades, I hope tomorrow, from test out to Blackboard. That is a manual process. If you've taken test out in some other classes other than 1135, that grades automatically transferred for you from test out to Blackboard. In 1135 and 1122, because we're using the same materials there for both classes, so that you use the same course materials in both of them, you're just doing separate things in them. Chapter 1 you did have to do in both of them, but should be the rest of the way through the course that you shouldn't be repeating over. But even if there is something that repeated over and you'd already done it in the other, you don't have to do it again because it actually shows out there already, unless you want to get a higher grade on whatever it is that was assigned on it that you didn't do as well as you thought you should have. But because it's split there, there's not a way to tell test out only to move over certain grades and not to move the others. So if we set it on an automatic movement, it would want to move everything, including the stuff that you're not doing in this class, but will do or did in 1135, which then messes up the grade book in Blackboard. So that requires me to have to go through and look manually at the grades and then transfer them across. So I have to look and see what you made on a certain assignment, transfer that grade across to that specific place, and back and forth all the way down. So to make it easier on me, I'm going to do it after the due date. Hopefully everybody is done with it at that point. And so that I only have to go through and transfer whichever item it is once. People turning it in late after that will complicate it for me a little bit, and that will get delayed some on the transfers because I have to look back down through to see which one didn't have a grade entered in for them, and then go over and look in, test out and see if they have a grade for it, and then put that grade back in Blackboard and on down. And people may still not have done it, but some may have, and so you can see where that will be a certain amount of time consuming. So but I'm going to try to each week transfer the grades. And let me set that down to vibrate. I didn't. All right. Now, as far as the next few weeks of these, next week we will have this one at this time on Tuesday. If you're in my CIST 2452 class, which I think at least one person in here is, that one I'm going to announce this afternoon. I am going to change the time of it next week. No, the 11 o'clock one. The time of the 11 o'clock, which would be 2412, I'm going to move that one next week because I have a luncheon I'm supposed to go to with Chamber of Commerce. It's a graduation ceremony for those of us that went through Leadership Walker, and that runs from 11:30 to 1 o'clock, I believe is what it is. So that obviously would be a collision on top of an 11 o'clock session. So that's next week. The following week should be on schedule as far as I know. Then the following week, probably, which would be the 21st, the day after another holiday, that more than likely I'm canceling the live collaborate sessions that week. I will be in training in Jacksonville, Florida, all of that week, including on the holiday on Monday, because it's not a Florida holiday, or at least Florida State College at Jacksonville is not celebrating it, or they haven't figured it out yet. That I'm scheduled to be in class Monday through Friday that week all day, Monday through Thursday, and then Friday usually we got out at 12. So that Tuesday I will be in class all day. So that would make it difficult to do the collaborate sessions. And since I'm in class from something like, usually those run down there from something like 8 o'clock in the morning that we're supposed to be over there at the campus till 5 o'clock. And we work through lunch. It may start a little bit later, but I also have to get there from my hotel, which I'm not exactly sure where it is in relation to the college. I think it's further on out, so I'll have to drive back into it. Usually, in the past, they always had us right across the river from them, and I could catch their little subway system across. But still, I had to walk down to the corner, or a couple of corners away, catch that, and then walk several blocks, about a half mile from the subway station down to the college. Actually, it's not a subway, but a skyway. And it's little tiny cars. They only seat 4 or 6 people. I think it's 4 people in them, and there's room for 2 wheelchairs in them, so you can have also about 4 or 5 people standing in them, and that's all that will fit in a car. But it was supposed to be more of a personal system, and it's really neat, and they don't charge to take it, and it takes you back and forth basically across the river and goes from all the way to the college, which is just a little bit beyond downtown. So I've always used it for a number of, well, I'm going to say a bunch of years down there, because I definitely go back to using that to 2002. At least. I know I did training down there then for 2 weeks, and I definitely used it for those 2 weeks every day. So it's always been neat. Back then it used to cost a quarter to write it, so you always had to have some quarters in your pockets. So that week I really don't see a time I can change it to, because I do intend to do a little bit for myself in the evenings, because notice I'll be working full in the training all week full time, and I'll actually be working on y'all's classes in the evening and answering emails. But I also intend to, I've got a couple of a former student from 30 years ago or so down there that wants me to catch supper with her. And I haven't seen her since that time. And I've got a friend that I grew up with that lives down there. And 3 years ago, when we last had this live, because that was 2019, and then 20 and 21, it was canceled due to the virus. Hopefully I can meet up with him because he lives down there, and he and I had a good evening together then. So, and a little rest, and I'm supposed to be, I think, down towards the beach. So it would really be nice to go walk on the beach in the evening a little bit too. So that's where we'll be coming from there. And then I think we'll be okay from there on out. Because I am on the road a lot this summer. And that actually starts this week. The end of this week, I will be on the road, helping a former student with a move to Nevada. I'll actually be driving car out there for her. And that I will disappear probably Wednesday evening, Wednesday afternoon. And then I'll come back next Monday, so Tuesday will be fine. And I'll answer emails the whole time, so send me emails. And I'll be watching that on my phone. However, I may be a little limited on how well I respond for a little bit, but once I get out there, I can respond better too. So, and then next week, I'll be at Kiwanis International Convention for the end of the week, through that Monday. I'll be driving back on that Monday because they've got me, I'm supposed to be in stuff Thursday, Friday, Saturday for the convention. And then because I'm governor-elect, I take effect October 1, they have training for me on Sunday. So we'll see how all that goes, and I'll be driving back on Monday morning. But these are on Tuesday, so that's part of the reason I set these on Tuesday, is I knew Mondays were a tricky part. We're on chapter 3 this week. So now, have y'all got any questions for me, anything about anything? I'll be glad to answer questions, comments, etc. Or you can just make comments that I don't even have to respond to. But y'all should be putting some stuff in the chat box. I know it's just chapter 3, and I believe there is a test this week on chapter 3. Yes. So the only thing this week is chapter 3. Because if you notice, we've got 10 chapters and we got 8 weeks. So that means some weeks we had to do 2 things in a week. And actually I gave y'all chapters 1 and 2, and this was following the schedule as they had it set up basically. Chapters 1 and 2, we gave you 2 weeks on, so that was effectively a week each. But then when you get to 4 and 5, you're going to have 2 chapters to do in 1 week. And when you get to chapter 8 and 9, there's 2 chapters to do in a week. And that's it on the combinations. Yes, when you go into test out and you see the course listed there, you should see a button sitting there where you choose the course to go into it. You should see a button on that screen when you first sign in that says exams, and it should show you that there is 1 exam out there. Actually, I'll show there's 2 exams out there now. Prior to yesterday, it should have shown 1 exam. Now it should show 2 exams as of yesterday on there. and that is where you'll find those tests when we have tests. You'll see me also refer to them as custom exams because that's actually what Test Out calls them. I don't know if they appear as custom exams for y'all. That's a problem I have. That I can't see it exactly as students see it, but I'm supposed to be seeing as students see it. But when you go in and you choose on that very first screen, you should see there. Well, actually, when you go into the course correction, because you're going to go into the course. I think it is. Let me see. Nope, you're not going into course materials. Well, it's looking different on me now than what it did before. Let me see. It should be showing a, because again, your screen looks a little differently than mine, so that's where I'm having to look and see. Because you should show 2 courses there, and then problem is I'm seeing from an instructor viewpoint. And I know I saw those buttons the other day. So now I'm trying to figure out where they were. And I'm trying to figure out where it gives me the option to be able to. It gave me an option to see a student view before, but now I'm not seeing that. Let me see what y'all been popping up. But remember, in every chapter, not everything is assigned, and then we are skipping chapters. That's because in 1135, you'll be doing the rest of the work. And in that class, you won't be assigned things you were assigned in here, other than basically chapter 1. Let me look real quick because it shouldn't be showing 0 exams, and that may be why I'm not seeing the exam button that I keep going, why am I not seeing it? So let me look at the custom exams real quick. That's not good. Now I gotta, this is not the friendliest system. Those are all of those. I see all of these old tests that it's been 3, and I see every test that every instructor at school has ever put out there in the last at least 3 years. And in all the classes that we've offered in Test Out over these years. This is where it gets confusing for me. So I am digging right now. Whoops. All right. The first test expired last night on me. Let me fix that real quick. I forgot about the holiday, obviously, when I set that up. I thought I had set up the next one. All right, somebody check and see if it appears now, because it should appear. The chapter 1 and 2 test should appear. Some of you have taken it. Let's see. Okay, so we got that. Now let me, before we go any further, let me go ahead and get the chapter 3 test, custom exam 2. So I can make sure it's there. Pretty sure I know who created that, so let me see if that will turn it up real quick. Okay. End it next Monday. I just figured out I have to. It wants to set things to end at 11:30 p.m. and I'm changing it to 11:59 p.m. And we're going to put everybody in it. And I don't think there's any time on these things. No, I don't believe these are timed. Okay, so there we got that. And so now you should have 2 exams appearing. And see, it still doesn't show them. Okay, so if they're showing 2 for you, then they must be good, because chapter 3 exams should be appearing also. So you should see 2 exams today. Tomorrow you'll only see chapter 3 exam being available. Okay, and you're only allowed 1 attempt, so apparently it does hide once you do take it. So So I've got those fixed for you. Let's see if I skipped anything else up here that y'all commented on. So on the test, they are online. You're going in them to take them. As far as I know, there is no time on them that it lets you work on them, because I didn't see any place where I could set a timing on them. Those of you that already took chapter 1 and 2 tests, that first test, did it have any timing on you at all showing? It's going to probably show Hopkins' name on it, because she's the one that created it. And it did not give me a choice when I just chose on it to change the name of the test. Because I don't think it gives me any choice on that. Okay. It's either going to have Hopkins or Reed sitting on it. That see. And I don't understand why it doesn't let me just see the ones I have scheduled right off the bat. Here it should. Okay. Because it could have one of their names still showing on it, because I'm pulling it from where they had already done it. And I don't think, and it does not give me an option to be able to change the name of the exam. Although when I'm looking at the name on it in both cases, neither one is showing right here their name on it. Now, oh, wait a minute. I do know what you did, I think. You took a test that isn't in here, that somehow otherwise appeared. Because actually, the semester showing wrong on those. Before I schedule the next one, I'm going to have to dig a little deeper. I'm going to try to dig a little deeper on this and see where I can change it. Let me look at something else real quick, Corey. I want to see something. I want to make sure you have and this grade book is massive, so the second problem is finding anything. And y'all aren't going to do nearly all the stuff that shows in the grade book, so don't let that panic you when you look at the grade book. I don't even know where I find that grade. It's not showing there. I'm seeing everything but what I want to see. Aha! And don't tell me I have to go through that whole thing. Because to do these, then I've got to do, it looks like, then if you expand a column, it doesn't even keep it. I see that. All right, Corey. Okay. So apparently it did show Reed's name on it. So it does show now when I finally found it in there. I have to do a custom report to get that score. And I see most people have taken it. The ones that are in here today, it looks like only one has not taken it. So that's that. All right, any other questions on that? Chapter 3. So, but when you do this next test, it may well have Hopkins' name on it. And I'm going to see if I can change that on the future test. So, but I'll have to play with it, and that's a question of time. All right, chapter 3, you're actually getting into, and this is the chapter specifically on the computer machine itself. As you get into the other chapters, you're getting into special things within them. So in chapter 3, you're going to go through and look at the system components. So they have you look at your cases and the different size cases that PCs can come in. There's a discussion on power supplies and about how to work with power supplies, and they have you do a lab installing a power supply and that. Then you look at the motherboard and how to work with those and the sizes on them. You go through some troubleshooting on motherboards about how to find your problems. You also troubleshoot power supply problems at that point too, because quite often those get confusing on that. Then you look at your processors, see your different type processors, see how to install them. They do install in different ways. So you're going to look at those at the what they're calling CPUs. which some others may call them MPUs, etc. on that. So they're going to talk about those and about socket types, and that. And so you're going to talk about AMD and Intel, and ARM processors should be in there also. Though from Windows machines, you're looking at AMD and Intel. Now, I will tell you that I do own a tiny little bit of AMD stock that I bought back in the mid-90s, but I use both type machines and stuff, and that I've held onto it over the years, and it has grown a decent amount over the years. And so they're talking about those there, and then they talk about troubleshooting those. I don't very often run into a problem with the processors. Processors don't fail very often. Then you spend a good little bit looking at memory, how to install it, what's the different types of memory, and you're working with RAM on this. And remember, there's ROM and RAM. Well, when you're working with memory, you're really working with RAM, random access memory. There's different styles of it with some extended names on those, and they're going to go through those and about your speeds of the memory and such on it, and then how to install it. Y'all have it easy today as opposed to people that worked on PCs back in the 80s to early 90s. They did not come on little boards like they do now, and that you just put that little board in. They used to come on little chips that you see on the boards, and that you had to put those chips in. I'll try to, if I can remember next week, I'll bring in, and I may go ahead and put it out there in a video. I have a board still from back then, from in the 90s, and where you stuck each memory chip in there separately, and you had to be real careful that you didn't break the legs. And that I still got one. Actually, a student brought it to me in the late 90s that he found it in a dumpster. So we moved to cards at that point, and that's what we're using nowadays. Cards are much easier to put in, and the price of memory has gone down tremendously in time. But just to show you how it was. Then they talk about the BIOS and the UEFI. The UEFI is the modern approach on BIOS. It's got a lot more capabilities to it and stuff. So they go through and talk about both of those. So those are combined together there. It's important that you do know how to go in there and change settings in the BIOS and the UEFI. You will do that at times, even if you don't go into computer repair business. There are times when you've got to go in there and make changes to it. It is running off of the CMOS battery, and that those can go bad, but it's very seldom they'll go bad. Although back in previous time, I remember people that manufacturers actually soldered in the batteries, and then when the batteries went bad, it was a mess. Batteries usually are changeable out real simply, and that they're basically the same battery that you use in watches and remote control devices and so on, the little flat little batteries, and that those are, so they're going to teach you on that. So pay attention on the BIOS and the UEFI and what you can do in there, because that is where the machine goes through. The first thing when you turn it on is to either the BIOS or the UEFI, and from there it then knows where to go to find the operating system and start the system on up from there. They talk about expansion cards, and they have you look at those some and how to install those. Not quite as a big of a thing today on installing expansion cards as was in the past. And as a matter of fact, most of your machines today only come with like 2 slots in them for expansion cards to go in. It used to be you had 6 or 8 slots in there, and there's times I wish they still had more slots in there. But you will install expansion cards at times, and so you need to be aware of those and pay attention on those. Video cards are also covered in here, although, and so those are talked about. Video cards use a different slot normally than the expansion cards. that there's a special video card slot usually in your machines for the video card, and can have multiples of those. Our church computer up in the balcony that I run on Sunday, we wished it had 2 video card slots. We were told when we bought it that we didn't need the second video card slot, that we'd be able to work it around to get them, because we actually use several outputs on it, and we would love to be able to do an additional output, but that's not working for us right now. But video cards are important to you, and the quality of the video you get. Then they talk about sound cards and your audio, and they present those to you and show you how to install those, and about your connectors that plug into your sound cards. Quite often your audio and sound card nowadays is built into the motherboard, but you can still add an external sound card. I said external, that's external to the motherboard. That's as a card onto the motherboard to have even better sound or to have better video. Video is also usually built into the motherboard. Then they talk a little bit about cooling at the very end. You do definitely want to watch on that and on machines, making sure the fans are clear and working and that the air can move through there. So that's what you're doing in this chapter. Questions on all of that? But we've actually used up just about the full hour. Questions, comments? Make sure I got everybody marked down here. All right. William, you missed apparently the first part of it. Actually, we fixed here in the beginning of class because the first test was hidden. I actually had it shut off last night by mistake when I set it up. I forgot that I was extending a day because of the holiday. And then the second test, apparently I thought I had set it up. I was convinced I had, but it wasn't showing out there, so I don't know what I did. But it's now available out there, and that some of your fellow students said that it does appear now when I put it out there. So you should see it now. The 4-pin power supply for pins plugs into the motherboard. You're not normally going to plug the 4-pin plugs from the power supply into the motherboard. Usually they're going to plug into accessories. That the power supply for the motherboard usually goes in as a 12 or 16, I believe it is, pin connector. Actually, I guess it does separate into a 12 and a 4. That's just a little square pin connector. And that, if it's got that little square one that looks similar to the 16-pin connector, it plugs in right beside the 16-pin connector if the motherboard needs it, because not all motherboards are going to use that extra 4 pins. Some use it, some don't, but it literally plugs right beside the 16-pin plug. So you'll see on the end of it that and it looks like one long connector when it's actually 16 and 4. So it plugs there, is where it normally plugs into. There is, on some, there's another plug similar that plugs over by near the CPU sometimes, but it's got its own distinctive little shape to it. And then the flat 4-pin connector goes into your accessories, to your older hard drive, but to your current, to the CD drives, I think it will still work in there, but it goes to the SATA devices, as opposed to now the newer devices that use the flatter little pin connector. Again, still a 4-pin connector, but a smaller one. Any other questions? And when I have to stumble around and to test out some on it, y'all got to realize it's been 2 years. No, it was spring of, yeah, I believe it's been just over 2 years since I taught a course using test out. Because I think I was teaching a class using test out in spring of 2020 when the pandemic hit, but I'm not sure on that one. I'm really thinking I wasn't, but I may have been. I think I was, and that I was teaching actually this class that spring at Catoosa. But it may have been the year before that. I know that spring I was teaching the first Cisco class in person besides online. I was teaching it at Walker, Catoosa, and at Whitfield Murray, because I taught it at Walker one morning, 2 mornings a week, and immediately left and went to Whitfield Murray and taught it there like at 12:30 or whatever. And with the time of the drive and depending on how weather conditions were, most days I didn't get a lunch until like 2:30 or something, that we failed to leave enough time for me to get lunch, along with drive over there, and sometimes that year driving weird. What class were you taking? Because as far as the grades transferring from test out to Blackboard, I have to manually do it. In 1122 and 1135, the grades do not transfer automatically. From test out to Blackboard. They will automatically appear in test out for you. Now in computer concepts, when you took that class, they did automatically transfer between the test out to Blackboard. But in 1135, she would have had to manually transfer them. Because the problem is, if we do a, no, 1135 should not have populated across, because she and Mr. Spurlock have both told me, and I'm using her course, that won't work in those 2 classes, because it wants to transfer every grade across from test out to Blackboard. And I do not want to be putting your 1135 grades in there. So it can't automatically transfer. If it did automatically transfer, I'd be having to continuously go in and delete all of those columns it creates when it transfers grades. Because if it doesn't see the column there that matches exactly, it creates the column for it. So I've got to use it that way. So I will be trying to transfer the grades soon after each time we have that you have deadlines on them. So for instance, I will try to transfer them tomorrow. I'm not going to guarantee on that because big concern tomorrow will be me getting discussions done. Now, most weeks, obviously, we got Monday in there. And also, William, since you missed the first part, I'm going to throw this one out real quick to you. Is that on the 21st, the week of the 21st, when we would have Collaborate normally on the 21st, the 20th is a holiday. I will be in Florida and training all of that week, including on the holiday all day long from something like 8 to 5 or maybe 9 to 5, somewhere in there. But I got to drive also from the hotel to the college where I'm taking the training at, and it's working lunches. They will supply us lunch, and they don't cheap on lunches, or at least they didn't in the past. There's a new person in charge of it now there, so I don't know if that might change. But they always brought in good catered lunches to us every day. So we had a meat and the vegetables and stuff type thing, or if we had a Spanish one, Mexican one, that we had the ingredients to make our own burritos, and then some beans and some other stuff on there. But they had like chicken and green beans and potatoes or something someday, and something else similar to that. It wasn't sub lunches. That week, because I will be in school all day long, so I can't stop to do these sessions that Tuesday. And then in the evening, I will be grading discussions that week. I will be answering emails that week. College requires me to still grade discussions, even if I'm not here during that week. Y'all will have to do that week the discussion instead of a live collaborate, because I just don't see. I thought about it this weekend, and I don't see any way to feasibly do it without completely wearing myself out. Because I got to drive to Jacksonville that Sunday, and then that Monday, that's supposed to be a day off for me. I'm working all day, and then on through Thursday, and usually we got out at noon on Friday, but I still got to drive home after we get out of class on Friday. So, but I will be answering email all during that time I'm there. Not necessarily during the day. I may get to, I don't know. I don't know how the stuff's going to run on it. So that will be that'll be the discussion that's due the 27th. So the one that becomes available on the 20th, y'all have to do that discussion. Because like today got you out of the discussion that became available yesterday, and that is due next Monday on June the 6th. Okay, so y'all should all get hundreds on that, hopefully later today. I'm working on several other things in the midst of all of this too, because I'm having to develop some new courses for the state, and I created one this morning already. And I've got some other things going on. So, all right. Any other questions for me? Because I got another session in just 5 minutes, and I got to get to it. Is there anything else on it? But William, I'll just double check with Ms. Hopkins just to make sure that I do have that straight. And I understand typing problems, so when y'all make little typos like that, don't worry about it. I will read it. So I can read what William just wrote me fine, no problem, just helping, just as well as Claudine, what you just wrote of no thank you. It's just you like the letter, the number 9, so you stuck it in there. And I make typos too. So y'all have a good week. I'm going to stop the recording now.